What's up, my beautiful people? We are live once again for another edition of Boxing History every night. If I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times. I know it's not every night, but when that opportunity presents itself, it will be every night. Hey, and that might, given the way things are going, that might come sooner than later. But I digress. I'll just leave that where it's at. But anyway, I want to send a major shout out to everyone listening right now. Whether this is replay, whether you're going to be in here live, either way, I just want to show some love. Appreciate you all. A little bit hyped up. We just listened to some music. Of course, I was listening to some Wheezy. I'm ready to talk this boxing stuff, baby. All is good, though. Man, this is a Wednesday, so trying to make Wednesdays very, very consistent. So I will be on Wednesdays. You can almost guarantee that unless something unforeseen comes about. But going to try to make this thing happen even more. So shout out to everyone. Real quick, see that over my shoulder here, my left shoulder. See that shirt right there? Jack Blackburn, a.k.a. Chappie. I'll call it a little modern old school morph right there. They're on the channel. You can check them out. I made the prices pretty much as low as I can get it because it's about the artistry more than anything. But I salute you all, and I appreciate you all being involved here. Again, it's good to come talk boxing history as we always do. Hey, visit the site as well, 86boxing.com. I've had this site since about 2018. It's gone through different iterations, definitely since 2018. I used to write articles and I would post it, and it was a different version of the website. It was more of a WordPress website. Then I scaled back and I revamped it. So now it just provides some information on the channels, other things. But, it's worth visiting because there is that giveaway for the autographed book by none other than the great author, Mark Allen Baker. You see that right there? I have posted a picture of it. It says, Joshua, here's a signed copy to give away on your show. Look forward to talking to you about Jack Dillon, Mark. So major shout out to Mark Allen Baker. Man, I so dearly appreciate him. Man, just far too kind, certainly far too kind. I'm going to be doing a giveaway of this. You can sign up. You'll see it on the website. I posted something in the community not too long ago. But if you're interested in Jack Dillon, there it is. Look, and I'm in the midst of it. I'm about halfway through myself here. You see, this is where I am. I'm about halfway through there. Just a shade under halfway, maybe. But I'm actually reading it as well as we lead up to the episode where Mark Allen Baker comes on and we have this discussion on the great Jack Dillon, the Giant Slayer, Hoosier Bearcat, or Hoosier, Indiana, basically. Indiana Hoosiers, famous name right there. And Jack Dillon might be the finest specimen out of Indiana when we think about it from a pugilistic standpoint. So if you haven't picked this book up, definitely do so. We're going to be doing a giveaway as well. Maybe you're lucky. It'll be a random draw. So anyone can get it. Again, this is an autograph one. So dedication right there, baby. Dedication. Anyway, thank you all for joining. Real quick, I want to shout out to people that are in here. Jose Diaz, appreciate you there. Jose says, hope you're doing good. Hope everything is going well. All is good there, Jose. Hey, all is good as far as what I can control. A lot of things going on right now these days here in the US of A, but I can only control what I can control. And with that in mind, hey, doing very well there, Jose. Thank you for dropping by, buddy. Shout out to Josh Taylor, fellow Josh right there. Says, salute, my friend. Appreciate you there, Josh. Thanks for dropping by, as always. Josh Taylor mentions Joe Gans was truly a great champion. No doubt about it there, Josh. One of the elite legends of the sport, indeed. And we're going to represent it here. Cheers to my man, Dan the Man. If you don't know Dan, be sure to check him out for sure. Dan is always dropping knowledge here in the chat. Appreciate you 100% there, Dan. Thank you, buddy. Josh Taylor says Jack Dillon was definitely a champ as well. Yes, indeed, man, pretty impressive. I knew of Jack Dillon. I knew of some of his accolades, but that being said, diving through this book by Mark Allen Baker, man, it's shedding an entirely new light on the great Jack Dillon. He was a hell of a fighter for sure. Hope they said, yes, sir, two great champions indeed. Dan says Jack Dillon, awesome record, great. Yes, indeed, man. He had an excellent resume. Shout out to my mom. Says, hello, son. Keep it up. Keep it 100. Oh, yes, I will do that, Bob. Appreciate you dropping by. Always showing love, of course. Bring the smile to my face. Dan says, look at the guns on Jose. Oh, yes, indeed. Jose, hey, he put it in. You know, I work out. Honestly, I need to be able to sleep. Yeah, Jose, hey, he can bench 300 pounds, 300 plus pounds. I know Jose mentioned that once. Shout out to you, Jose. Salute to my man, Random Acoustic Thoughts. If you want to learn some boxing history related stuff, be sure to check out Random. Go subscribe to his channel. He has a lot of good content that even crosses over with sort of the discussion we're having here today for those that have an interest in it, of course. So appreciate you there, Random Acoustic Thoughts. Go subscribe right now. But yeah, so thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Again, we are going to be talking a little bit of boxing history, right? And specifically, the point of this live, or the intent of this live, is to dive into the career, well, not the career, but dive into the controversial fight that took place between Joe Gans and Terry McGovern. You have the old master Joe Gans taking on terrible Terry McGovern. The specific date, December 13th, 1900. Isn't that crazy? December 13th, 1900. So we're talking basically 123 years plus, essentially. That's what we're talking right there. And isn't it amazing that we can actually talk about such here? And the crazy thing is we also have film of such as well. We do have film of this contest that we're specifically going to discuss here today. Now, I say controversial because it very much is still a very controversial fight to this day. As a matter of fact, Dan and I, we're on the opposite ends of the controversy. And if you didn't know, it's surrounding whether or not a bout was fixed. Has that happened in boxing? You betcha. It was happening back in the day. Does it happen now? I don't know, but there are some strange things that take place in the sport for sure. I can't vouch for it 100%, but what I can say is there are some strange things that take place in the sport. And as mentioned, shout out to my man Dan. I like that we get to have this dialogue because, as I mentioned, Dan and I, we're on opposite ends of this. Dan says it wasn't fixed. For me, it looks like it might have been fixed, but I don't know. It did happen a long time ago, but it is what it is. You know, it's just one of those things. But again, December 13th, 1900, Joe Gans, who at the time was the great lightweight. I think he might have had the title at that time. He might have. But that being said, Terry McGovern, he started out a little bit lower than Joe Gans, rising from basically around flyweight, what we consider flyweight today, becoming one of the greatest featherweight champions in the history of the sport there. And I think that he is one whose resume might surprise you a tad because of the fact that it is pretty stellar. It is one of the more impressive resumes that you can think of when you look at some of the names that are on Terry McGovern's resume. It's pretty crazy. As Jose Diaz says, very interesting, great topic. Thanks there, Jose. Yes, indeed. It is very interesting. So we've chronicled Joe Gans on the channel. As a matter of fact, there are a few Joe Gans videos on the 86 Boxing channel. By that same token, there are a couple of Terry McGovern videos. Now, they don't go as in depth. Some of them are from earlier on, though there is one out there, Terry McGovern, where I talk about some of his big fights. Now, this is, I always caveat, it's one of the older videos where it was using this artificial intelligence voice. So it wasn't my voice that was actually going through the process. But I did write the scripts, and of course I've gotten better since then. So if I were to do a Terry McGovern video on this particular day, then it would be a lot longer and a lot more in depth. But that being said, if you search Terry McGovern 86 boxing, or switch that around, 86 boxing Terry McGovern, you'll see a couple of things, or maybe a few things that pop up. Photo animation video, the video where I'm going over his career with a little bit of early stage animation, so it's not to the degree that I am at now in terms of skills. And you'll see a short or two out there. So there's a little bit of something there as it pertains to Joe Gans similarly, but I have more videos of Joe Gans on the channel than I do of Terry McGovern. But the two are most certainly linked, and they're linked forever. And the reason behind it is most certainly this fight. As mentioned, it's controversial if the controversial aspect stems 100 plus years. If it extends beyond that mark, extends beyond 100 years, so there definitely is some controversy surrounding there. So Dan says, looks totally legit to me. Remember choppy old film, Gans lost some of his big fights. Totally awesome. Yes, indeed. That is true there, Dan. Hey, Jose, sometimes young folks need to listen. Indeed. Hit the nail right on the head. Yes, indeed. But you are right there, Dan. There are some fights that Gans did lose. And on some occasions, he wasn't always in the very best of shape. He probably cut some corners in those situations. That being said, when he was on his game, probably one of, if not the most formidable fighter that was out there. And certainly one of the great lightweights that the sport has seen. I've not been shy in saying that I view him as the numero uno when it comes to the lightweights out there. But you can say 1A, 1B with him and Benny Leonard, because Benny Leonard, amazing. Absolutely amazing. So if you have Benny Leonard first, hey, I'm not against that. Not against that whatsoever. I do have Joe Gans number one. Then that's a shade over Benny Leonard. I've mentioned this before. I don't have Roberto Duran number three, contrary to what some may have, and some people have Roberto Duran number one. I actually have Ike Williams coming in at number three for me, and then we can get to Roberto Duran. But Ike Williams, amazing lightweight, big lightweight, just in terms of that size and reach and everything. But that being said, Joe Gans, I rate him number one. He had a mix of pretty much everything you could ask for thinking about the sport. And he could throw punches from all the angles. He had power, speed. He had the footwork. He had the IQ, the skills, the ability. And he was just one of those amazing fighters. And to contrast, of course, Terry McGovern, if you're putting together a list of the biggest punchers in the history of the sport, no doubt about it, terrible Terry McGovern is one of those guys. Don't let that 5'3" frame fool you. He was very much a formidable opponent and a formidable, ferocious puncher, one of the premier punchers in the sport. I don't know all of the names listed on the Ring's 100 greatest punchers, but I'm pretty sure Terry McGovern is there somewhere. I don't know all the names that are listed there. It's 100 greatest punchers in boxing history. They did this a couple of decades ago, I guess. But that being said, no doubt terrible Terry McGovern is there because he is that formidable of a foe and that serious of a puncher right there. I mean, again, he rose from around the flyweight ranks. He was knocking out guys as he rose up. And depending on whether or not this fight was legit, knocked out Joe Gans, something that very few could do. Alex, salute to Alex Gamble, who's dropped by, says Gans took a dive, no question. Everybody at the time believed it was a fix. Gans was accused of taking dives more than once. That is true. There have been other occasions where that was the case, at least where it was stated that Gans took a dive or whatever you want to call it in order to kind of skirt, or well, it was a financial means there, and some of it he had no choice. You know, his manager was Al Herford for a long period of time, and especially during his height, and they had some disagreements and all, but there's certainly it's not the first allegation there as far as Gans, and certainly he in some contests carried fighters to mid rounds or later rounds. He carried them as far as he could have potentially gotten them out of there earlier, but based on instructions, he would let it go on a bit further. So you're right there, Alex. So salute to Alex Campbell. Appreciate you dropping by, Alex. Always good to have you here, sharing some knowledge and love. Hey, Udis, shout out to Udis Fernandez. Appreciate you there. Mr. Fernandez says salute. Hey, always great having you in here in the mix as well, man. Great insight, great question. So appreciate you. Alexander Campbell says Leonard Duran or vice versa lightweight. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed. Benny Leonard, Roberto Duran. Good stuff there, Alex. You're right. Certainly. Shout out to Joshua, my fellow Joshua out there as well. Another Josh in the building. Josh says hi, and Terry McGovern can really whack. Yes, indeed he can. He most certainly can. Shout out to my man, Boz's Boxing. So be sure to check out Boz's Boxing, folks. You see it right there, BOZ Boxing. You'll see him on YouTube there. He has a channel. We do boxing shit on Sundays, basically, from 11 a.m. till we finish, essentially. We like to keep it an hour, but sometimes it goes over. But shout out to you, Boz. Appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. Again, 86 boxing history every night. We're talking Joe Gans versus Terry McGovern. Now, Joshua says, a shame the Gans fight is the only one film-wise. Oh, yeah, that's pretty much the only one there for terrible Terry McGovern. As far as I know, there are really no other ones out there of him. It would have been cool because, as mentioned, he has a very impressive resume when you really look at it from top to bottom. So he was a hell of a fighter for sure. But this is the standout fight for him, that fight with Gans. But he has some other feats on his resume as well that are pretty solid. So, but yeah, just not a lot of film of him. Unfortunately, there might have been more, and they could have been lost in the shuffle there at some point. But that being said, it's good to have at least something, and we do have something. So kudos in that regard. Dan says he's talking solid smashes in the head, not a fix. I can spot a fix a mile away. I don't give a f what A-hole said. Stopped over 100 years ago. Oh, yeah. Hey, you could be right there, Dan. You could be right. Did you show the fight? No, I haven't showed the fight there, Joshua. I thought about it. I might get a little copyright thing if I do. I don't know for sure, but they have it on some other people's channels. So I do recommend checking it out because it is one that is out there. You'll see some film. The Legends of Boxing in Color, I think that's the name of the guy who has a channel, and he has a color version of that particular contest, or at least the bits that we do have. It went about 2 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. This was the second round when Gans was out of there. Jose Diaz said, I've read books on him. He could really throw hands. Yes, indeed. McGovern. Sad Hagen. Yep. R.I.P. for sure. For sure. Yeah, R.I.P. Joshua Sanders as well. For sure. No doubt about it. We lost one of the greats there in the sport this week. Greg Hagen. Hagen. So definitely R.I.P. there. But yeah, as Jose said, sometimes you didn't have a choice as far as some of these fights that are fixed or considered fixed. Money talks, bullshit walks. Alexander Campbell is spot on in that regard. He's most certainly spot on. Let's see here. Joshua says, I don't think the fight itself was a fix. There was 2 things that went against him. One, Terry caught him, and the second, the lack of neutral corner rule. Not many can escape with Terry standing over them. Yeah. Hey. That's compelling for sure. That is definitely compelling. Cheers, Boz. Yeah, we do have another Joshua in here. Jose says, I have to go translate for a Latin channel. I think we're going to get Morel versus Berlanga. Oh, that'll be awesome right there, Jose. Definitely let us know how it goes, buddy. Appreciate you dropping by for the time that you have there, Jose. As always, salute to you. Go check out Jose, folks. Give him a like and subscribe. Boz says McGovern was formidable until young Corbett II smashed him. Young Corbett II, very good fighter. Great fighter, actually. And yes, that is the case there. Sometimes you run into an even more formidable foe. Fight for fight, career for career. They're both pretty top caliber, basically. Joshua, the fight was 120 years old. How much longer is the copyright there? Hey, yeah, you're right. You know, other people have these videos up, and it gives you a little copyright notice. Like, who owns these videos, right? Like, it's so long ago. I know that the sort of copyright, I forget what you call it, public domain license, I guess, lasts for 70 or after 75 years, it becomes public domain, something of that nature. But as far as YouTube is concerned, yeah, they don't quite get that down in the fashion it should be in terms of how exactly you can maneuver around such. So you're right. Maybe I'll try and pull it up and we can kind of just see. Send a shout out to the guy there. Jose, how old are you? Okay, got you there, Dan. Some dialogue. Cheers to Morning One Bat. Salute that to you. Morning One Bat says, just want to pop in to show my appreciation. Really enjoying the content on here as well as on 86 Sports. Best boxing content on YouTube. Salute to you. Awesome to chat with people who actually know boxing. Super rare. Hey, appreciate your Morning One Bat. Hey, I'm flattered, most certainly. Hey, love getting into this dialogue about boxing history. There's a true appreciation there. So I thank you for actually taking the time to check it out, of course. And man, that's a big thing. But we're going to dive a bit more into this actual contest that took place between these two. I'm going to step away for a quick second, but while I do that, I'm going to pull up the tail of the tape. So ponder over it. And this is the tail of the tape on the day that these two fought. So this was in 1900. So you can get a glimpse of where the record stood, some of the sort of attributes that are tied to both of them, where the heights reach, and I guess the other stuff that you see on a tail of the tape, beyond attributes, I guess. But here we go, folks. I want you to check that out, and I'll be right back. Hey, I don't know what that was. I thought I heard something like a firework or shot. Not the vacuum cleaner? Oh, no. Can you make up in the vacuum cleaner? All right, folks, back in the mix here. There's a crazy loud sound around the way here. But hey, all is good. All is good. So Thanks for checking that out. But this is the tale of the tape, as mentioned. 26 years of age for Joe Gans when they met. 24, terrible Terry McGovern. 5'6", really 5'6.5" for Joe Gans. Then you had McGovern at 5'3". 71-inch reach advantage, and the reach advantage was on the side of Joe Gans. Had 6 inches on terrible Terry McGovern as far as the reach is concerned. Hold on, let me move this one little thing. All right, and then for the weight, 133. So the lightweight limit at that particular time was 133 pounds. And Terry McGovern, 124. So Terry McGovern was the featherweight champion of the world. I believe he had the title at the time that he moved up. And therefore, he was pretty much around the weight of a featherweight. Look at the records there. This is amazing. So when they met each other, keep in mind, 26 and 20 years of age. Think about that. 26 and 20 years of age. And look at the records on these two individuals. 96, 6, and 14 for Joe Gans. This is by the age of 26, already over 100 fights. And then look at terrible Terry. He's only 20 at the time, 53, 2, and 4. So that's 53 victories, 2 losses, 4 draws. They're absolutely amazing here. Now, I'll note that when you look at those records, one thing to keep in mind is, one thing that you should keep in mind at least, is the fact that this takes into account some of the no decisions that were tied to each of these individuals here. So there were some no decisions involved. So I'm going to post a video on how you looked it up based on BoxRec. So BoxRec is like the premier, I guess, the number one site that people visit when they look at, or at least want to look at, the records of some of these great fighters. And basically, there's a means by which you can calculate it. Shout out to Xavier the Boxing Nerd. He gave me the blueprint for such. I created an Excel spreadsheet for such. I created a video on it, but it is on the 86 Boxing website if you want to download it. Now that's diving into the nerdiness of the whole situation. So that is interesting. It's pronounced Haugen. Okay, got you right there. Greg Haugen, Norwegian. So Haugen, thanks there, Boz. Boz holding it down from Norway as we speak, as a matter of fact. And my mom sends her regard. Yes, Corbett was some kind of beast. Terry couldn't cope with others like him. Yes, indeed, there. So Joshua says, by the time Corbett got to McGovern, the Terry Prime run was over. Guess you could argue such. Certainly argue such. The third fight was a draw, Boz mentions. And Joshua mentions not even Mickey Mouse made it to 100 with Disney. They lost the copyright protection for the first Mickey last year. Okay. Crazy how that stuff works. Joshua Corbett III was a bad dude too. Oh, yes, indeed. Young Corbett III. They have a memorial of him in that like Fresno, California area. I just saw a video on that 3 days back, as a matter of fact, just randomly. Ralph Giordano. Good stuff there, Boz. Yes, they were great fighters. Corbett was nowhere near McGovern caliber at the time of those fights. Terry was going batshit crazy. Got you there, Alex. Got you. For sure. Maybe the worst young Corbett. Boz says, hey, maybe the first one, Gerald Green, he was the first. I'm sorry, Boz. I was referring to William Raphael Corbett the second. Oh, yes. He's legit. A lightweight versus a featherweight. Yeah, hey, McGovern, they put this challenge on. He fought Joe Gans. That's where some of the questions could come into the fold there. I showed you the tell of the tape while I'm here. As a matter of fact, let me pull this up. I have some other things to show here. I think we have a good grasp of... Well, let me go through some. Let me see. Get through these comments real quick. Okay, Daniel, it was a Josh Taylor sentence. Too bad. Back in those days, they didn't have punching machines that told you how hard you could hit. Yeah, that would have been amazing to see. The only champ from Denver says Boz. Okay. Okay, there, Boz. But Corbett was awesome too. So Denver, Colorado. Where was my man Denver Ed Martin from? Yeah, Green was tough. Yes, indeed. Joshua says, going back to your cartoon version of the fights, I think Terry went Corbett style in shorts for this fight. Oh yeah, cool. Hey, there's actually a reenactment of it. Might be the McGovern and Corbett fight. I could be off though. Maybe it's not them. I know there's a reenactment of some fight involving young Corbett the second, but it might not be that one though. So I had to look it up. True, Alexander McGovern was going nuts young, and Corbett was very intimidating. Oh yeah, yeah. Terrible Terry, the other terrible Terry Norris is one of my 5 favorite boxers. Okay, got you there. Here, more modern by comparison. Kiki Keaton, what's up, cuzzo? This Kiki. Hey, shout out to you there, Kiki. Appreciate you dropping by, showing some love. Salute to you there. Hey, appreciate you 100%. So yeah, we'll definitely have to chat. Bod's boxing. I don't know if you can blame that on him losing twice to Corbett. He did box a few more years after that. Hey, yeah, that is true. Yeah, the no decision fights were there to help pass the real fight as a practice fight. Yes, so no decision bouts. We've talked about that before. There are a lot of stipulations surrounding prize fighting, with it being illegal and all. And the irony of it is this particular contest went down in Chicago, this being Gans versus McGovern, and it was banned, this being the sport of boxing, essentially was banned for the next 26 years. Think about that. Probably one of the harshest punishments from a fight being considered fixed or whatever. So when we think about the fact or thinking about whether or not it was actually fixed, the city of Chicago felt it was. The state of Illinois, boxing was banned in Chicago for 26 years. In the aftermath of this contest, there are actually arrest warrants presented for both fighters in the beginning or prior to them getting into the ring, because word was already out. Word traveled, of course, fighting. And you could do it under the precipice of it being an exhibition or a sparring session. But that being said, realistically, some of those sparring sessions and or exhibitions were real fights disguised as such. So that's where a lot of trouble came as well. A lot of trouble came as a result of such. Jose mentioned Morrell has signed to fight a Dominican fighter. I'll give you the name in a little bit. Okay, good stuff there, Jose. Yeah, but Terry's fight was above featherweight level, though. Yes, indeed, it was there, Joshua. So, yeah, he had some hellified power for sure. It would carry beyond just the weight he was at. And I told you, he started at around the flyweight range, like 115 pounds. Just think about that, going from 115 to 126, being able to knock people out. So that's next level right there. So that's worth the nod. Yeah, and Terry McGovern, he was 5'3", Gans 5'6.5". So there were some differences there, size overall. Alexander Campbell says McGovern's friends were afraid he was suicidal. Man, just think about that. Boxing was a lot more brutal back then than it is today. So you have to imagine how some of that wore on some of these individuals. Boz asked, did he join the army later? I'm not sure about that. He could have, though. He very well could have. Joshua says, to think Dempsey 22 must have been the first legal fight in Chicago. Yeah, that certainly had to be one of them. Had to be one of them right there, because that was in 1926. There might have been the one. Boz's boxing mentions Ed Walgas. Yes, Ed Walgas, former lightweight champion of the world, died in the institution. Unfortunate mental problems. You got to think how some of the damage played into it, CTE or whatever it may be. Some of that had to play into this whole situation, these scenarios, certainly. So it's one of those interesting things. But again, hey, appreciate everyone that is here right now. Visit 86boxing.com. Enter the contest for Jack Dillon. Be sure to like, subscribe, show some love. Appreciate you all. We are talking Terry McGovern, Joe Gans. We're talking about this great contest that happened back in 1900, 1900, and it's still controversial to this very day. Now, I'm going to pull up this to give you an understanding of just how good Terry McGovern's resume is. Mull that over there for a second. All right. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of this based on what I know. Hey, and as mentioned, this is just me off the top, so I could get some things wrong, but definitely go double check on your own because, as mentioned, I could get some things wrong. But basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of these names and give you my insight and thoughts surrounding them. All right, we'll start with Joe Gans. Of course, that's the fight that we're talking about. Joe Gans is the man who is partially responsible for this very controversial fight. Harry Forbes, that's a name and a legend of the sport. Fought for a world title. May have fought for more than one, as a matter of fact. I don't know everything about Harry Forbes, but he was a formidable fighter from that particular period of time. But he did fight for, I believe it might have been bantamweight, featherweight world title, but he's another name mentioned. I'm going down the left, and I go to the right. Pedler Palmer. This is a British fighter. He's actually a damn good fighter. As a matter of fact, from an all-around standpoint, I don't think he ever won a world title, but he was right on the cusp. He was close there. He had the British Commonwealth titles in and around his weight, but he just came up short from a world title, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure he may not have won a world title, but he was right there on the cusp. You know how that can be. Tommy White, I don't really know a lot about Tommy White, but he did fight for a world title on multiple occasions. So that was the name that I saw listed there, and I was like, hey, this is worth mentioning. But hey, I'll let you know. I don't really know anything about Tommy White, but that's maybe someone to dive into here for future purposes for sure. Frank Earn, I call him Frank Earn. I've heard it pronounced Frank Erne. Baj let me know because he was Norwegian. I'm pretty sure he was Norwegian. So, yeah, I think he was Norwegian. He was either Norway or Switzerland. Well, making me second guess myself there now. He was either from Norway or Switzerland. You let me know, but I heard Erne. I always say Frank Erne, but former world lightweight champion, and that's who Joe Gans actually won the belt from. I haven't done a video on him, but I do want to do a video on him. He had, I believe, sub 40 fights, so it wouldn't be one that is too crazy as far as the overall number of fights, but at the end of the day, it's what you do in those actual fights. So he had a hell of a resume in those actual fights. And again, this is the guy that Joe Gans won the World Light Heavyweight Championship off of, Frank Erne or Erne. Young Corbett II, we kind of just, talked about Young Corbett II, world champion there. I believe he was the featherweight world champion because that's where Terry McGovern primarily operated. Ton of fights, ton of competition. We don't have him on footage. I'm pretty positive we do not have footage of Young Corbett II. We only have a reenactment of him and someone. And who that someone is, I will certainly have to double check on because I don't know for certain. I don't recall for certain who it is, but I have seen it. And if you don't know, reenactments, they were a thing from back during that period because, of course, video was still relatively in its early stages. Like, we, of course, got video in the late 1800s there, but that being said, it wasn't widely available. People weren't just around with TVs. Usually then, during those periods, the fight films would be sold, and it would be the equivalent of if you go to the movie theater, kind of an equivalency in that sense. So you couldn't just go pop in a VHS or DVD, of course, because that wasn't around at that particular time. So you had to go to a controlled setting. You can call it closed circuit as well. And that's where you'd be able to see some of these fights. Now, by that same token, they had reenactments that were meant to provide a round by round of some of these actual contests as well. It's a very interesting, some would argue weird little thing, but I guess it's the equivalent of like if you were to do a boxing movie or something of that nature, where you get two individuals who look like the fighters that were involved, and then they go through the process of reenacting the fight as it was sort of calculated, or as it was taken down from a round by round perspective by the journalists who were ringside. Because, mind you, a lot of these boxing events were no decision bouts. And when it came to the no decision era, which this very much was, the differing factor was certainly if you could get that knockout. So in a lot of cases, if you didn't get a knockout, it was going to go to a no decision. So when you look on the records, and that's one of the things when you're reading BoxRec, you have to understand that it looks weird when you see their records and total number of fights. It's because of the no decisions. Now, there are some that are with the no decision. They count the no decision victories, because if to have a no decision that or a victory in a no decision, that means that the majority of the newspaper, the journalists that were there, favored X fighter in the contest. So that's how some of the verdicts were essentially determined. But if you look on BoxRec, they don't necessarily count them right then and there at face value. So you have to use another means to get an understanding of what it was. But generally, if you didn't knock a fighter out in one of those no decision bouts, then it was going to be an automatic no decision or prearranged draw, for instance. Very interesting, but that was a way to kind of skirt the legal ramifications of such. It's very interesting, Yeah, I'm not a big well, I wish it would have gone a different way, I would say, but that's just kind of the way it is, It's just kind of way it was during that particular era. It was pretty crazy thinking about it, though. Real quick, let me check some comments. The worst part is he kept training for years, and that's reference another fighter, but it never came. Wolgas. Oh, yeah. Ed Wolgas. I mentioned him in the Packy McFarland video on the channel. If you have not seen it, it's an hour. The first hour video that I was able to do as far as the animation documentary and going through that, script was written and all that stuff. It took me about four to 5 months to make the video in itself. So do check that out. This guy's about 1,400, 1,500 views, somewhere in there right now. If you haven't seen it, check it out. A lot of work went into it, but I appreciate you regardless. Joshua says, I don't buy the NFL not knowing about brain damage in football when boxing fans for hundreds of years already know of the aftermath and effects in the sport. Indeed. There's a video on the channel on Joe Gans, probably the biggest loser in the sport, the greatest loser. If there's such a thing, you can be great at losing. Joe Gans is that. Check it out. But he suffered a similar fate, but it just shows you sort of the crazy nature of boxing, man. It's crazy. Poor Wolgas had a tough life. Great fighter. Worked over battling Nelson in 2 wars. Yes, sir. At Wolgas, hell of a fighter right there. Hell of a champion for sure. Packy McFarland wanted to get a shot at him and never quite materialized. It would have been a hell of a fight, and we would have had it on film had it happened there. McGovern was a handsome guy there, says Josh. I got you for sure. Bob says a pocket size Adonis. That's funny there. McGovern spent much of his late life in mental institutions, says Alexander Kimmel. Yeah, that's so unfortunate right there, but certainly not something unseen. There have been some of these cases with boxers are fairly interesting. You have some who go through these tremendous wars and they're okay, but you have others who go through these wars and they don't end up the same. You think of a guy here in modern times, for instance, Meldrick Taylor. He didn't have like a crazy long career compared to some of these in total fights compared to some of these guys that we talk about. But that being said, the fights that he did have, they did enough damage that you can just see there's a change, there's a difference in him. And by that same token, take a guy like George Chaballo, had a decent amount of fights, especially for a heavyweight, went against all types of punchers. Never, stopped once, but never down in an actual contest, like not down on his butt or back. But he was stopped against George Foreman. That being said, he took some hellacious blows. And I saw an interview with him from a couple of years ago, and nothing looked off or anything. He looked to be in the right mindset, looked to be well spoken, all that good stuff. Then you have some others where the damage affects them differently. So it is pretty crazy, when you think about it. Bob says, poor guy, he had too many hard fights, obviously, just like well, guys. Yeah, hey, I wouldn't doubt it. And as I mentioned and have said, okay, Frank was Swiss. Thank you there, Joshua. I knew it was either Norwegian or Swiss. So Swiss, yeah, good stuff. But yeah, man, some of these guys, man, true warriors of the sport, and they just suffer on the back end. Dan says, really great era, lightweights, featherweights at the time. Gans, Nelson, Walgas, McGovern, Corbett, Abe Patel, yeah, one of the all-time great featherweights. As a matter of fact, shout out to Mark Allen Baker, because he has a book on the man that dethroned Abe Patel, Johnny Kilbane. And I'm about halfway through that book, but I don't even know where my copy is. I was about halfway through when last year I took a trip back home, and I remember having it at the airport. And I'm pretty sure I had it when I came back, when I was on the plane on my way back, because I remember reading it, portions of it, while I was on my way up. But yeah, I haven't seen it in months. So I'm still kind of on a search for it. Maybe I had to get with Mark and let him know that, hey, I kind of lost that in the midst of it. But Kilbane, the longest reigning world featherweight champion. Yeah, Johnny Kilbane, 12 years. But he dethroned Abe Patel. Very interesting, right? So Alexander says he never served in the army. He died visiting Camp Upton. Believe mental midget served in the army back then, even if he served. Okay, good to go there, Josh or Alex. And then Joshua Father Buffalo, hometown Frank. Okay. Let's see, Freddie Welsh. Oh yeah, Freddie Welsh, great fighter. Jim Driscoll, great fighter for sure. You had to go to the theater to see the big fight, Joshua. Yes, indeed. Just speaking of what I was saying, so sometimes those fights you would have to go to the theater to watch them. So it's not like you just pop in a tape or anything. It's just the way it is. Josh says, of course, the fight was already over when you saw it in theater, but it still made a lot of money. Yes, indeed. Indeed, that is right there. Let me see. For historian terms, I think it should remain a no decision on the record with a newspaper summary of the site on this to the side. Okay, good. Hey, appreciate that there, Joshua. Yeah, and that could be the way it is. When I calculate the records, like when you see on the videos that I have, as I was mentioning, because of those no decision, I just list the total amount of no decisions that were involved, so that I don't differentiate between what was considered a W and what was considered an L. You just see the total number of no decisions there. So you have to keep in mind that, hey, they could have won all of those fights from a newspaper standpoint. But that being said, I just list them as no decisions. But when you're looking at a record and you see someone has a number of no decisions, and depending on how you are viewing it, you see they have more wins than what you may have initially thought, then it's because of the no decision situation. And with that in mind, that's just something you had to think about with all these fighters from back during this particular period. As time went on, of course, we moved away from that. So I would say that after we left probably the 20s, then you started to see less and less of it. From the point we got to the 30s and on forward, you started to see less and less. But you're talking pre-1920s, yeah, you had some fighters who had a ridiculous amount of no decisions. You'll see in one of the discussions I did last time around, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, he had like 76 no decision bouts. Think about that. Those are 76 bouts. That's usually a fighter here in modern times, their career. They might not even reach half that in their careers, but Philadelphia Jack O'Brien had 76 of them. It's insane. Very much insane. So yeah, this is good stuff. Here, I'm gonna pull up McGovern's card, his fight card record, where you can see that. I want you to mull that over. Then I'm gonna dive back into it here. Gotta step back for a second, but I'm gonna dive right into it. But I want you to mull this over. Look at this resume. Insane. All right, folks, back in the mix here. Back in the mix. Thank you once again. But yeah, man, it gets crazy right here, you know. But essentially, let me pull this back up. And I know I have a lot of comments, but that being said, let me dive back into this for a little bit more here in terms of Terry McGovern's resume, right? Let me see here. All right, so Terry McGovern. I had got to Young Cobra second. Then gonna go to Tommy Murphy. We're going down the left right there. And that Tommy Murphy is Harlem Tommy Murphy. Now, I want to do a video on Harlem Tommy Murphy. I haven't got around to it quite yet. He's actually a name on a list of videos that I want to do. Hell of a fighter. And if you think about that excellent Abe Attell Harlem Tommy Murphy photo, where both of them are bloody, just went at it in a war open air arena, then you know that he was a hell of a fighter right there. One of the absolute best there for sure. Harlem Tommy Murphy. This is another one that Terrible Terry went up against. Then, of course, the Fighting Dane battling Nelson, Oscar battling Nelson. There's another name on the ledger there of Terrible Terry McGovern. And battling Nelson, one of the all-time greats, Mark Allen Baker. As a matter of fact, he has a book on the Fighting Dane there. Do I have it? I'm trying to think. I don't think I have that one. I have a few books from Mark Allen Baker. I don't have that one, but it's certainly one checking out. And he was a hell of a character, I can say. And, of course, with the two subjects, not only McGovern, but he fought Gans multiple times as well. Matter of fact, his most recognizable, most formidable fight or fights that you can think of were probably those with Joe Gans from a popularity standpoint. So I'm moving to the top now. Tim Callahan. I made a post about Tim Callahan several months back. I just kind of provided just a little depiction of how great of a fighter he was. Amazing resume. Never won a world title, but was a guy capable of winning a world title. I'm pretty sure he never won one. But if you look at his resume, he was right there. So that's sort of the intricate detail of these fighters right here when you think about it, and certainly comparing it to modern times. Just think about the fighters who just came up that short of winning a world title. But the thing about it is, of course, you only had one belt back then versus the four main belts that you have here today. But there were fighters that came up that short. Tim Callahan, one of those fighters, great boxer. And I should do more on him. If you've seen some of the videos on the channel, then you've seen his name pop up before. But formidable foe, most certainly. Casper Leon, that's a name worth mentioning, because if you've seen a video, probably the more famous video of George Dixon, former champion, featherweight champion there, he was, and I think he might have won a bantamweight as well. But there's a video out there from the 1800s with Casper Leon and George Dixon. I believe it was 1800s when that actually took place. But that's where that name will sort of ring a bell. So Casper Leon, top-notch fighter, top caliber fighter from that particular period, but certainly famous for the George Dixon video where he kind of came into the forefront, I would say. Then, of course, George Dixon, who we mentioned, one of the all-time greats there, reported to be the inventor of shadow boxing, and, man, a true legend of the sport. Unfortunate ending, died at a young age, broke, destitute, and yeah, you saw that with some boxers. And I will say that even to this day, there's always some, you have some of those stories that kind of fall in line with such. And it's very unfortunate, especially given what these guys put on the line, these guys and gals actually. Oscar Gardner, another name of mention. If I'm not mistaken, Oscar Gardner, he's one of the trios of the Gardner brothers. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but you have Jimmy Gardner. Then you have the other Gardner who won the second person to win the light heavyweight title. It's not Gus. It's not Gus Gardner. Someone has to know. I was thinking about this earlier. I couldn't think of his freaking name. But there is another Gardner, the one who won the. Matter of fact, here, I think I have a thing here. Matter of fact, let me see here. Oh, yeah, George Gardner. That's him, George Gardner. So he's in the family as well. So it's worth mentioning George Gardner. I just have a thing because we talked about him not too long ago, as a matter of fact. Impressive resume as well. But getting back to Terrible Taylor McGovern, but Oscar Gardner, very, very solid fighter, brother, one who was top notch during that period. I can't remember if he won a world title. I don't think he did. Aurelio Herrera, really the first Mexican, the true Mexican superstar who was of top caliber, a Mexican American, we can say, because you had Mexican Pete Everett, Aurelio Herrera. He was better than Mexican Pete Everett, fighting out of San Jose. I actually was starting to work on a video on Aurelio, but he's a name that you will see pop up. Very, very formidable contender during this particular era. Never won a world title, but certainly one of the best to do it as far as those guys who didn't win a world title. Eddie Hanlon, one of the big punchers of the sport, who had a short career as far as overall fight totals, but look at his resume, look at his record. Big time puncher. I'm going to do a video on Eddie Hanlon. His nickname was Cute, so Cute Eddie Hanlon is what they called him there. But he was don't get it confused, man. Big time puncher right here for sure. Jimmy Britt, another one of those guys who didn't have an extensive career as far as total fights. But man, when you look at his resume and who he went up against multiple times at that rate, one of the best to do it there. Jimmy Britt, he fought for a world title on multiple occasions. Never quite won that world title, but he was right there, right on the cusp of it. And then, of course, Young Lowry, contender from the period. Young Lowry, he had a brother. He had a twin brother, as a matter of fact. So we've had some twins. But of course, I believe he's a twin, or at least, yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a twin. They look nearly identical. I guess they were identical twins at that. But Young Lowry, very formidable opponent. His brother, not quite as good as him, the one that took on the Young Lowry namesake. But that being said, both fighters in the sport. It's just Young Lowry, he was one who was a legit and true contender. Like if you look at some of the videos on the channel, you'll actually see where his name has popped up in several instances. Let me see. Here we go. Alexander Campbell said, news station decisions, some books and records put an asterisk besides newspaper decisions. Most certainly. You can understand why, right? You can understand why, given some of the information I shared. Joshua says, yeah, for every Jack Dempsey in retirement, you get a lot of Lewis's or Ali's. Yes, indeed. Tom Jones, hey, he was a great manager there, promoter. Alexander Campbell says, Welch was one of the greatest that does not get his due. Yep, my paternal grandmother considered the greatest lightweight. Okay. And saw him fight, called him a fellow Celtic warrior. Oh, that's awesome right there, Alex. That's pretty damn awesome. Yeah, Freddie Welch, he was a rival of Packy McFarland. Those two went at it on a few occasions, as a matter of fact. And man, he gave Packy a run for his money. Freddie Welch, one of the best. I know he died at a fairly young age as well, unfortunately. But man, he is one worth mentioning. I want to do something on him there as well, Alex. Something larger, I would say. Maybe that's something I work here soon. I have a few things in the pipeline as we speak, so I'll get them out as soon as I can. The latest, of course, is I dropped a Sam Langford video. Check it out. I also dropped a Rocky Marciano video. As it relates to both Sam Langford and Rocky Marciano, those will probably be the only two videos that I do on them in that sense, where I'm kind of diving into it a little bit more in depth, but it really kind of touches on the people they fought as well, just to provide an understanding and view of just how good these individuals were. But that being said, those may be the only two that I end up doing on those individuals. That aside, do check those out. But Freddie Welsh, man, he's overdue. But there are a couple other things in the pipeline, so I hope to release those very soon. The editing process can be extensive at times. I've tried to cut it down as best as I can, but hey, when you're the only one editing, it's like that. It's like that at times. Yeah. So, but yeah, I appreciate you all, taking the time to come check it out. It's very rewarding. Makes me feel good, especially when I have those long lost family members, maybe not lost, but family members further down the line who are recollecting on some of these great fighters who are part of their lineage. And that's priceless, essentially. That is priceless, regardless of whatever the scenario is. So I appreciate you all for sure tuning in. Welsh is up there with Wild, and Calzaghe is one of the greatest Welsh boxers ever there, says Bob. No doubt about it. For my money, number one, of course, Jimmy Wild. Trey Titan, salute there to you, Trey Titan. Appreciate you dropping by, buddy. He says, late to the party, but I'm picking Gans. Hey, gotcha. Yeah, yes, indeed. Yeah, so we're talking about Joe Gans, Terry McGovern, whether that fight was fixed. We're going through some of the different things tied to those individuals as well as the fight in itself. And the fact that, of course, boxing was banned in the city of Chicago for around 26 years. 26 years. Can you believe that? So that shows you that they were pretty serious about that for sure. Joshua, I have one of Jimmy Britt's fights. Oh, you have Jimmy Britt fight? So there's him on footage. I don't know if I've seen it or not. Maybe I haven't seen it. Joshua mentions, yeah, Jack was the king of no decisions. Yes, indeed. There, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. Ton of them on his record right there. Joshua says, sadly, the KO happened off camera as the fighters move off camera, and Britt was standing over with the 10 count. Okay. Yeah, I don't recall if I've seen it. I could have very well seen it. I don't know. But definitely let us know. Drop that in the chat there, Joshua, if you have it. Well, Joshua, Jimmy Britt was an awesome. Something incomplete about his record. He beat all the greats. Yeah, Jimmy Britt was something special right there. Shout out to Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more. Appreciate you dropping by, Bruce. Hey, be sure to go like, subscribe to Bruce. He has some historical content on his channel. Generally doesn't go way back here to this time frame we're talking about right now with McGovern and Gans. But that being said, historical content nonetheless. Man, he puts me on game with some of the stuff, especially that 70s era, all these stuff that was surrounding some of these great fighters from that time frame and forward. Man, salute to you there, Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more. So be sure to like, subscribe to him, folks. Check it out. I think you'll like his content, and he does some quizzes there. I'm trying to make the next one there, Bruce, for sure. Shout out to my man, Rodolfo Rivera Jr. Appreciate you there, Rodolfo. Always dropping by, showing some love right there, Rodolfo. Appreciate you. No doubt about it. And Dan says, salute, Bruce. Great interview with Mercer. Yeah, Bruce interviewed Mercer, Ray Mercer here not too long ago. So salute to that, Bruce. I got to check that out. I'm going to check out the replay, no doubt about it. But, hey, great fighter from that period right there. Thinking about the 90s being one of their standouts. Knocked out Tommy Morrison. Insane. Just a guy who was just raw with that power, and natural ability. Nelson Gans was the Ali Frazier of the era, says Joshua. No doubt about it. Alexander Campbell mentions good books is The Battle of the Little Giants. Is about McGovern-Dixon fight and the Gin era. The Gin era. Okay, gotcha. Had to check that out there, Alex. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that one in terms of the listing, but definitely worth checking out. Joshua says, I'm not sure Dixon invented shadow boxing, LOL. I'm pretty sure the likes of Mendoza was doing that 100 years early. Hey, you might be right there. Mendoza, he's credited with being one of the more scientific fighters or the early scientific fighters, and this was dating back to the bare knuckle days there. I've heard the bare knuckle fighting attributed or the shadow boxing attributed to George Dixon, but certainly, like you said, hey, there might have been instances way back when there, Joshua, like you said. Udis says these guys were mammoth hunters compared to today's boxers. No doubt about it. Different breed. A different breed for sure. Boz mentions, I was just reminded that McGovern said he can only be beaten by a fighter who fights the same way as he. Hey, he could throw them things, man. He could throw those hands for sure. So I think that factors in. Salute to Chris Irish Box. He says, salute, lads. Appreciate you there, Chris. Thanks for dropping by there, buddy. As always, good. Hey, check out Chris as well. Be sure to like, subscribe to Chris. Joshua mentions McGovern really had faith in his power in chasing the boxers down and knocking them out, and he was very successful at doing so. You got to give him props. He was pretty damn successful, and hey, that's got to count for something right there. But McGovern was a beast. Shout out to Skywalker Boxing Media. Be sure to check out Skywalker. Does some great interviews over there on the channel right there. So check out Skywalker, the Tim and Tim Show, etc. But you got interviews on the channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. Appreciate you appreciate you dropping by there, Skywalker, as always. Alexander Campbell mentions the Sullivan twins. Of course, those Sullivan twins. We're talking about Jack and Mike Twin Sullivan. Of course, Jack had more fights, but Mike Twin Sullivan, you could argue, was probably the better fighter. Now, some of that, I mean, it's subjective, of course, because Jack had a ton of more fights than Mike Twin Sullivan, but in those amount of fights that Mike Twin Sullivan had, he made the best of it for sure. And recognized as the world welterweight champion, Jack never won a world title, but that being said, both of them very formidable, experienced fighters. Matter of fact, Mike Twin Sullivan fought Jack Dillon. Just thinking about this book once again. Check this out, folks. Jack Dillon. I'm in the midst of reading this right here by the great Mark Allen Baker, friend of the channel. And I'm doing a giveaway. Be sure to drop by the website. Look, here's the autographed copy right here. Just so you know, there are 2 copies. I'm not playing games right here. 2 copies. Mark sent me a copy to give as or to enter as a giveaway or whatever it may be. So if you're interested in that, visit 86boxing.com and join the raffle, I guess you can say. Gonna auction it live. I'm still pending when exactly that interview will be between myself and Mark Allen Baker, but it's gonna be late March. So we're a month away, and I look forward to it very much because Mark, he keeps it going. I imagine he's working on something right now. I'm gonna see if I can get little insider nod there, but I appreciate Mark Allen Baker. Hey, he even shouts me out in the book here in the acknowledgments as he did with the Johnny Kilbane book. Man, I'm super flattered by it, man, you know. But man, Mark Allen Baker, you're crazy. Hey, I get a shout out in there in the acknowledgments. Who would have thunk it? You know, it's insane. It's insane, folks, you know. Insane. The Sullivan twins, great. Joshua says, not sure why we ask if Rocky could beat the later greats for his greatest when we don't ask that of Dempsey or Lewis. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Hey, Rocky was a beast there. So I have a video on the channel, one of the latest releases, of course, on the great Rocky Marciano. I mean, Mr. Susie Q himself, one of the best in the biz there for sure. One of the great heavyweights that we've seen, overcame so many odds. Dan mentions Welsh was doing great in life and then ran into a lot of bad luck. Reminds me of me, kind of. Yeah, hey, I feel you there, Dan. Hey, I appreciate you, Dan. No, you are appreciated here, certainly. Shout out to my man Moss, my cousin, my fam right there. You need me to do some editing for you? Hey, yeah. Let's holler. See what you're about, right, Chef? You know what I'm saying? We'll see what you're about there, Moss. Salute to Moss there. Wow, the Atom, the mighty Atom, Jimmy Wild for sure. Trivia tonight there for Dan or for Bruce. I take it this is gonna be at 9. I'm gonna drop by there, Bruce, depending on what it's about, because sometimes you do some that I know that I don't know, like some of the jazz trivia. I love some jazz music, but I don't know all the trivia right there, you know. Alex says Rocky Marciano had today's nutrition. He weighed 210, no doubt about it. Can these fighters stop Marciano? That's the question that I asked right there. We saw Ajay Caballero giving up several pounds to Big Bang Jang, and we saw him break him down to the body right there. Just think about a guy like Rocky Marciano with that intense training, man, he'd be something serious to deal with. Dipsy 225, Alexander Campbell mentioned. No doubt about it. Just think about Dipsy at 225 pounds just coming in with that same aggression and force. He would have killed Jess Willard. I'm glad it didn't happen, but let's think about him being 225 at that particular time, because he was then may have been like 187, 190, somewhere in there. Crazy. Marciano really worked to get down to 185 during his title fight, so who knows how much he could carry. Yeah, no doubt about it. Boz says Mark Allen is a fine boxing writer. Indeed. Salute that to you, boxing, or Boz. Yeah, historian, certainly knowledgeable guy. Yes, indeed. Appreciate Mark coming onto the channel. He's shows love, and man, he is a steward of the sport right there. Nice for you to get a shout out in the book. Oh, thanks there, Joshua. Yeah, it's all good. All boxing trivia night there for Bruce Gas. So, folks, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going over to Bruce Gas's channel. If you're here now at 9 p.m., I want to see you on Bruce's channel, because we're going to do some trivia. And hey, it's boxing history trivia, but I've never won. I know a little bit. I know a little something, but it gets tough. It gets tough in there. I've never won. I've been in, like, I think the highest I've been is maybe like third. Maybe third. I can't remember if I've been second. I don't think I've been second, but I think I've been third. Just think about that. So, and hey, I don't know everything, but that being said, hey, I like it. Bruce, he's evolved the competition as time has gone on. So it's pretty crazy over there. Dan has been over there. He knows what I'm talking about, says the Irish dominant. Yes, indeed. Dan knows what I'm talking about. Boz boxing, it's always me versus drunken Irishman. Oh yeah. yeah. And Joe knows. Joe is not in here right now, but Joe, he's the one to watch for. We got a gang up on Joe. I mentioned that in my last live, but Joe, he knows everything, so he's the one to watch. You gotta push Joe out of there if you want to actually win. So it's interesting. As long as we can stay in the 1900s to 1960s, that may be okay. Okay, good stuff there, Joshua. Yeah, I like that. Matter of fact, when you go 1800s, early 1900s, I'm better. But even once we get to the 1960s, then I start to kind of wane a little bit. But I do know from like the early 2000s to now, but I would say from those 60s and on up, I know some stuff, not nearly enough, of course, but it's fun to do it. Okay, Bruce Gas, tune in. My man Moss, hey, be sure to like and subscribe. Bruce Gas, boxing, jazz, and more. Moss, Bruce Gas, and yes, that is the gas that you think it is. Bruce Gas, so be sure to tune in to Bruce Gas there, Moss. Chris says 1 or 3 weeks ago, and he gave it to the fruitcake Lemmy. Gotcha. I did. Hey, that's good stuff right there. Shout out to Definitely Irony, or Define Irony, rather. Got Harry Grab in the picture there. Salute there to you, Define Irony. Be sure to go check him out as well, folks. Show some love there to Define Irony. He does the thing for sure. We're tired. Boz, I don't remember seeing you in there, Boz, but hey, if you're in there, hey, that's what's up. Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready today. Boss says, oh, I know. Yeah, check out Bruce Gas. That is so funny. Dan, I gotta get up in a few hours. I gotta miss the trivia tonight, but great show. Thank you there, Dan. All good. I don't envy you either, Dan. But again, yeah, we're talking Joe Gans, Terry McGovern. Was this fight fixed? Real quick, I do a quick rundown. We all know Joe Gans and who he was in with, so I do a quick rundown. Young Griffo, former world featherweight champion. Young Griffo was a great fighter, fought Gans on multiple occasions. You could say Gans was a better fighter, realistically speaking. Bobby Dobbs, excellent fighter. Kid McPartland, another very, very good fighter, contender there from the time. Dobbs, McPartland never won a title. I mentioned Frank Earn, so Gans, that's who he won his world title off of. Joe Grimm, as I mentioned last time that I pulled him up, Joe Grimm, check out the video on the channel for Joe Grimm. He's just one of these tough. It was weirdly tough. Something was wrong with him for sure. As far as they said, he had like a skull that, I don't know, the bone density was thicker than the average person. I don't know. But that being said, look at that video I have on the channel of Joe Grimm. It's a mix of crazy, barbaric, weird, and entertaining, I guess you can say. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Joe Grimm, but I put him in there. So at least we're recognizing Joe Grimm because he went through some shit. That's what I would say. He went through some shit in Philadelphia there. And Philadelphia, probably the premier fighting town across the entirety of the globe. Philadelphia might be that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you have to check out that video to get an understanding of what I'm talking about. So check out on the channel, just search Joe Grimm. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain. You just have to see it. He was a perennial loser, but a little bit more to it than what you may think. Sam Bowen, great fighter along the lines of Bobby Dobbs. This is a black fighter who had to take tough fights, never got a shot at a world title, but was damn good. Of course, battling Nelson, we talked about Harry Lewis, world welterweight champion, another Philadelphia fighter. He was born in New York, but raised in that Philadelphia area. Very, very good fighter. I have a video on the channel. He was the first fighter charged with killing a fighter in the ring, manslaughter. He was actually charged with manslaughter as a result of a fight that actually took place. I dive into that on the video that I have on the channel of Harry Lewis. These are people, again, that Joe Gans fought. Jack Blackburn, starting from the top right there. Of course, one of the great fighters. He's in the Hall of Fame as a trainer. Probably should be there as a fighter as well. He has a win over Joe Gans, one of the formidable fighters from his period. Think about it. He fought Joe Gans, so he was of two different eras. He had spent some time in prison, but he fought the likes of Joe Gans and Harry Greb. Just think about that. It's crazy, right? Because Joe Gans died in 1910 or 1909, actually. I think it was 1909. And just think about that. Jack Blackburn fought Joe Gans, and he fought Harry Greb. George Elbows McFadden, when you think about the list of those great fighters to never win a world title, George Elbows McFadden is one of those individuals. And he would use his elbows to block. I'd imagine it'd be cool to see it on video, but that's how he got that nickname, Elbows McFadden, because he would cover up, use his elbows. I'd imagine just being there doing some of this stuff, kind of prairieing with the elbows or whatever. Then, of course, McGovern, Willie Fitzgerald, a formidable fighter and contender from the time. Dave Holly, another formidable fighter, contender from that period, never got a shot at the world title. Barbados Joe Walcott. Joe Gans fought Barbados Joe, who's the world welterweight champion and first black world welterweight champion, as a matter of fact. Then you have Mike Twin Sullivan, who I spoke of, and Kid Herman. One of the great knockouts that we have on film from that particular period is Joe Gans versus Kid Herman. I have a little video that depicts such on this channel. I call it GOAT Knockouts or something like that. But, man, Joe Gans just caught him with a right hook as he was kind of stepping in, and Kid Herman just kind of ducked into it. Lights out. They say he was out for like 30 minutes. And you can see on the footage that they had to pick him up and kind of just carry him. But supposedly he was out for around 30 minutes as a result of getting caught with this right from Joe Gans. That shows you the type of power in his punches. But I just wanted to show that. So when we look at both of their records compiled there, Joe Gans and Terry McGovern, two formidable fighters. And as mentioned, one of the purposes of this live was to determine whether that fight was fixed. So, as mentioned, it went 2 rounds. It went 2 rounds between the two. It was scheduled for 6, but it went 2 rounds, and it was a second round stoppage on behalf of Terry McGovern. Now, getting to the meat of it in the contest itself, and what we have there on film. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and give a shot at pulling it up so we can provide our own thoughts right here. I'm going to go ahead and do that, as a matter of fact. Hey, we'll see what the thought is, Gans versus McGovern. This is the best way. For those that haven't seen it, just let me know. Let me know your thoughts right here. So everybody get ready. I hope everyone is ready. I'm about to show this. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to ask if we think that this is legit. Okay, let me see here. Let me see. All All right, I'm just getting my screen ready right here. Share screen. Joe Gans, Terry McGovern. All right, give me a quick second. All right, we're in there. All right, folks. So we're about to watch this together real quick, and I want to get your thoughts.
Runde dann. Pferdegewicht. Terry McGovern gegen Joe Gans. Terry McGovern, der Mann. In der helleren Hose, und er ist auch zu erkennen, er ist der Weißhäutige, und Joe Gans ist der schwarze Fighter. Es war kein Titelfight. Zu diesem Zeitpunkt war Terry McGovern Weltmeister im Federgewicht. Dieser Joe Gans war eigentlich einer, der im Leichtgewicht angesiedelt war.
Is Joe Gans letting him hit him? That was round one. Here goes round two. Is Joe Gans letting him hit him, or is that just Terry showing that force, basically?
Und das war's dann.
Now, Gans was a beast,
in
no
der
doubt about
zweiten
it.
Runde wurde Terry
Shout out to DSF. I guess that's who this may be. DSF, or I see that in the corner there. Smooth DSF, you give me a shout out, even though this goes back to before you were likely born. Well, most certainly before you were born.
Und damals
is Gans being serious right here, or
man musste nicht in die neutrale Ecke gehen. Und sobald
is he just kind of playing into Terry McGovern's strength?
Das alles ist heute nicht mehr möglich.
This is where it ends, real quick. But hold up, before we stop from there, look, I'm gonna look at. There's a version in color here. Oh, this is a video that I did right here. Let me see. I'm gonna show some love. This is the Legends of. All right, so here, Legend of Boxing in color. Same thing. We're gonna see it in color here. See if that changes your mind.
Gegen Joe Gans. Terry McGovern, der Mann.
Make it a little bit bigger. As far as it can get.
In der helleren Hose, und er ist auch zu erkennen, er ist der Weißhäutige, und Joe Gans ist der schwarze Fighter. Es war kein Titelfight. Zu diesem Zeitpunkt war Terry McGovern Weltmeister im Federgewicht. Dieser Joe Gans war eigentlich einer, der im Leichtgewicht angesiedelt war. Und das war's dann. K.O.-Sieger in der zweiten Runde wurde Terry McGovern.
I just dropped a poll in the channel for those that are here. At least you can vote on it. And then I'll do a main one on the community post in the channel. But here we're seeing it right here together.
Konnte man noch bei dem Gegner, der am Boden war, stehen bleiben.
Now, of course, for those that may not have seen Joe Gans before, you're probably not going to have context. And then as it relates to Terry McGovern, this is the only video we have of him out there in action. But we do know what he was able to do. That being said, based on what you're seeing, especially those that have seen some other Joe Gans videos, does he seem to be diving?
Terry McGovern in
or
Chicago.
He looked all right there. I tell you, when he shook hands right there, he looked like he wasn't phased. I gotta be honest with you. He didn't look phased right there when he shook hands. So that's pretty compelling in a sense there. So let me see here. I want to get people's thoughts, you know. Hey, that's us seeing it together right there. We can't hide the fact. Let me see. Rocky would have kicked glass off Patterson to Kingdom Come. Oh yeah, definitely, Alex. I think so as well. Graham did not fight us who's who, though. I give a lot of credit. Graham did fight a who's who. I give a lot of credit for fighting the best. Yes, indeed, he did. Crazy. Boxing like Johannesson did. He had Ingo stay focused on boxing. Who knows? Oh yeah, no doubt. Johannesson KO of Macon was just brutal. Eddie Macon, yes, indeed. Ingo, like Patterson, had a glass jaw. Yeah, that's crazy. Let me see. I'm gonna move down to here. Yiddish says, Alex, what about the Marciano chain? He went down versus very old Mongoose. Oh, yeah. Archie Moore caught him with a damn good shot for sure. Joshua ready to copyright, huh? Josh, LL, I was not worried though. Yeah. Hey, it should be all right. Alex says, Ingo had a hammer of Thor in his right hand. That's for sure. No doubt about it. Boz says, okay, guys, been a pleasure. Got to run. Get ready for bed. Cheers to you there, Boz. Appreciate you there, buddy. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks, Bob. Be sure to check them out. Subscribe, folks. Alex says Marciano had a granite jaw. Indeed, there. Indeed. Yeah, can't really recover like that. All right, let's see here. Joshua says McGovern is landing on that jaw. No, it's not a love tap. No doubt it was not. Dan says this was totally legit. Chris says looks too rough to be fixed. Gotcha. Dan said a lot of fix some of the biggest fights, but people get mad at me. Oh, yeah. Hey, some were. All right. I don't know what that says right there, Alex. Play it again, Josh. So we got two of them out of there. Exactly. Alexander Marciano is best known as the best cheat in history. Flash knocked down from Mongoose. He really killed Mongoose. Got you there. But, hey, we just saw that here together. Gans versus McGovern. Was that fixed? Was it not? I don't know. As mentioned, boxing was banned in Chicago for about 26 years. So when you look at some of the great fighters from that particular area, say, for instance, Packy McFarland, a lot of his fights went down in like Milwaukee, for instance. And that's because that was the place to go during this official ban on prize fighting boxing in Chicago. It stemmed from this. I guess when we really look at it based on what we saw, you can make a case for both. You can make a case for it being fixed just as you can make a case for it not being fixed. Yeah, Terry most certainly was not holding back, but some would argue Joe Gans had better defense and you'd see him throwing a bit more offensively by comparison. He wasn't throwing a lot there, so that poses a question in some sense. But he could have been dazed, stunned by Terrible Terry, who was a smaller fighter who packed a major wallop. So, it's very subjective. What I can say is that the powers that be certainly took it as a fixed fight, considering that boxing was banned there. But by that same token, you can say that was probably an agenda. They were looking for a reason and an excuse to actually ban such. Joshua says the film is an edit and the film is degraded over the years, but there's no doubt Terry was landed. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yeah, that is degraded footage. That's about as good as it gets. There was a channel. There's no longer a channel, and I think that's for copyright issues, but Smooth Legends. This person went through the process. I assume this is a he, and he was putting a lot of these old school films in high definition. His channel was revoked. Once you get 3 strikes on YouTube from a copyright perspective, or if you get an actual copyright strike, then they just delete your channel. Copyright strikes is a little bit from a copyright because I have a couple of videos on the channel where there's like a copyright, so that means it can't be monetized. But that's cool. But when you get 3 copyright strikes in this channel, Smooth Legend, some of you might be familiar with it, but it was deleted because of, I guess, using some of that footage. So a lot of it was older footage, but there were some things that probably went into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and maybe that was the culprit right there. I don't know. But I remember that at one point, Smooth Legends and I were both in the hundreds as far as subscribers. And when he got deleted, he was over 10,000 subscribers. I know that. You see where I'm at, like 2,700 and something. But I'll take that rather than a deleted channel, So I don't know what it is, but It's kind of unfortunate. He put in a lot of work right there. I shouted him out in a couple of videos because I used some of that footage because he did a good job of making it a bit more clearer from a pixelation standpoint. But apparently YouTube wasn't too fond of it, I guess. Dan says every fight is, if you're isolated or loser, you can say looking like he could have done better. Oh yeah, definitely did. Josh says Gans was also able to slow down Nelson with his grapple, something he could not do here. True. That didn't happen. Chris says he probably just had a bad night and just wasn't his night. Yeah, that might have been the case there. Dan says fixed fight guys come in throwing high and wide and slapping at the body, taking it easy on winner. Got you there, Dan. Yeah, I'd imagine that can be the case. Josh says Smooth Legends also went up to the 70s. The 70s and up, and I think that may have been his Achilles heel. Okay, Joshua's familiar with who I'm talking about there, Smooth Legend. But he had a lot of videos, and he did a great job of getting them in high definition, or he did something to where he can enhance the pixelation where it looked very, very clear. And it's a cool thing to have. I don't know why. Well, I know why, but at the end of the day, yes, some of these big fights and all of these things, some of these major stations and companies, they have the rights to them. So, of course, they're going to be all in on seeking every bit of financial gain from them that they can. But, yeah, Smooth Legends had his stuff deleted 10,000 plus. Heck, he could have been at 15,000 plus at that particular point. I can't remember exactly. But I do remember a time where we were both in the hundreds, and he just continued to shoot up. But he was able to drop a lot more videos in succession than I was able to do here. But hey, I'm cool with the slow growth right here. We're all dialoguing. We're all showing some love here, baby. That is what it is. It's just one of those things, you understand? So, as mentioned, Joe Gans, Terry McGovern. Man, I appreciate everyone being here. Let me look here at this poll. Look at this poll right here on the channel. I just dropped this poll. I'm sure we don't have a crazy amount of views, of course, or entries. So we have 5 votes. I guess that's not bad. It says 60-40. 60% says no. I guess you got to go with the majority in that sense. I mean, 60% says no, it wasn't fixed. Yeah, it's crazy. Alexander Campbell says a couple of posted in German, so I had to post it in Ukrainian. Next time I do Scots Gaelic. Okay, cool there, Alex. The good stuff. Oh, Scots Gaelic. Okay. Yeah, my partner, she played Gaelic football. You know about Gaelic football there, Alex? I knew nothing of it until probably about 4 years back or something like that. And my partner, she had a coworker who invited her to go play Gaelic football. So she went out there, I have some pictures and all that stuff. She was a part of the team. She had a little jersey and everything. Been a while, though. She didn't stick with it, but we got to get her back out there because I love to root for her doing her thing. Gaelic football. It's a weird, interestingly weird little means in which you go about it. A mix of soccer and rugby, or football and rugby-ish. Just crazy right there. But the Gaelics, big shout out right there. That's a foreign language skill right there. Yes, indeed, they're dead. Alba go bright. Got you there, Chris. But man, so man, I appreciate everyone who's been here, who showed some love. We've been an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half. We're talking Joe Gans, Terry McGovern, their famous 1900 fight. Yes, you heard that correct, folks. 1900, and it is on video, or at least we have some film of the actual knockout taking place. And we're talking about whether or not it was fixed, sort of a deep dive. The depth in which we dove, it's subjective, of course. But that being said, we talked about some of the feats of these great fighters. We looked at the resume of these great fighters. We could see that there were 2 of the top caliber competitors of their time. And at the end of the day, what more could you ask for as a boxing fan? To be able to have that on film have some of the accounts and for it to be able to stand the test of time in the way that it has, priceless in some sense, that is very much priceless. So shout out to both of these great fighters. So regardless of what we may think, 2 world champions, 2 great fighters from the era, and they have lasted the test of time. They have gone down in history. When we think about the story of boxing, most certainly this fight between Terry McGovern and Joe Gans is one that has to be mentioned. I mean, how can you not mention that one? These are 2 of the best that competed, and it shows you kind of that situation where you have fighters in 2 different weight classes. They meet, and we get one of those once-in-a-lifetime style contests. And, of course, back then you didn't have those in-between weights, so Terry was a featherweight, Gans was a lightweight. They had to just meet right there, You saw the weights. Terry was pretty much a featherweight. Gans was pretty much at that lightweight limit of 133. So that's how they met. So it wasn't any of that in-between weight stuff. So, that's the nature of the beast during those particular times there. Alex says, father's mother was a Gaelic speaker, taught me all of my family. My mom was Ukrainian. Yeah, okay. Viva Ukraine. Check out. Yeah, no doubt. Much love to Ukraine. You know how I'm riding there, Alex. Got a video on the great Kid Kaplan, one of the great Ukrainian fighters there in the history of the sport. There's a video on the channel. If you haven't checked it out, which a ton of people haven't, to be honest with you, more should check it out. Kid Kaplan, certainly one of the greatest featherweights in the history of the sport. He and Terry McGovern, that would have been a hell of a fight right there. Look at that video on Kid Kaplan if you haven't, and you'll see that, hey, he had the potential of upsetting the apple cart there. He had to duck some of those bombs from McGovern, but he was very much capable right there. So, Viva Ukraine! That's where, where allegiance lies right there. Alex, you know where it lies. Got to pass on to our kids, no doubt about it. Gitta says it's difficult to say it was a dive when there was no neutral corner rule. The other guy was there already before you got up. Yeah, that is one of the interesting things from that particular period. Man, talk about not being able to catch a break. Like, Jesus, let me breathe. Jack Dempsey, man, he was like that. Hey, he wouldn't give you an inch. That was crazy right there. Good point. Still talking about Terry and Joe well after 125 years. Insane, isn't it there, Joshua? That goes to show you that this history runs deep. Super deep, matter of fact. Gotta love it. Gotta freaking love it. Alexander Campbell. Oh, yes. Alexander. Joshua says, one thing, if it was a fixed, Gans should stand down after the first or second knockdown. Why keep getting up? Hey, good point. Good point. There's a logical point there. There's one thing we can all agree on. 2 great fighters. They both stand out in any era. No doubt about it. They give it to some of these featherweights and lightweights we have here to this day right here. No doubt about it there. Just imagine them with this same nutrition, some of the medicines, etc. Make no mistake about it, the sport was a more dangerous sport, a less safe sport back then. Make no mistake about it. I don't care any way you slice it. The sport is safer today than it was back in the times of Terry McGovern and Joe Gans. But salute to all these great fighters for sure, but they would no doubt stand out and likely be champions in any era. In any era, because greatness can't be shaded, essentially. So with that, man, this has been great. Good discussion right here. We'll be back next Wednesday, no doubt about it. Going to get that subject matter down. Still haven't 100% decided on what it will be, but there will be something. So be on the lookout for sure. Man, I appreciate everybody dropping through, showing some love here. It's always great to talk boxing history. That keeps us going right there. That keeps us live and in the mix. Again, before I step out, hit up 86boxing.com. Sign up to get that autographed book of Jack Dillon from Mark Allen Baker right here. I got it right here. You can see it. Just so you know, I'm not BSing. Look, I have my own copy right here. This is the copy that Mark sent me personally. It's autographed. It's got a little sticker right there that says it's autographed. That little red sticker in the corner here. So I haven't opened it or anything. So it's for the person who ultimately wins it. So be sure to join that and show some love there for sure. But in the meantime, I thank you all. Joshua said, yeah, but I'm sure if Battle Nelson got off his grade today and said it was 12 rounds, be kind of upset. So, yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, those guys were some beasts back then going, hey, 25 rounds was the minimum back in those days, man. It's crazy for some of them at least, but they had some fights. It's ridiculous to think about the length in which these fights were then. But again, thank you all for tuning in. Hey, more videos to come. I got some other stuff in the works, so expect some stuff real soon. I'm going to try to do more and more. As I mentioned, circumstances have presented such. So be on the lookout. Show some love. Thank you. Take care, everyone. You all appreciate it for sure. I'm out of here.